This week on Engage the Sage.
Hi everyone, I'm Don Saucier. Welcome to this week's episode of Engage the Sage. This week, I'm going to talk to you about how we might want to stop giving exams in class. Now, to be clear, I'm not necessarily arguing that we want to stop giving exams. I might take that point on in a future video. But for now, I want us to think about maybe not giving exams during class time. When I'm talking about giving exams in class, I'm talking about that traditional situation where your students come to class, they're all sitting there, they have the entire length of the class to take the exams. The exams might be multiple choice, matching, short answer, essay, whatever. But what's happening is your students are basically doing the same thing at the same time together in one room. While they're taking these exams in class, the students are working independently, they're working silently, and they're not using any resources. As I've been thinking more and more about in-class exams, as I've been reading more about assessment, as I've been trying more innovative things in my classes to assess my students' learning during the COVID-19 pandemic, I keep thinking that maybe we don't need to be giving exams in class anymore. Right away, I'm sure that some of you watching this are disagreeing with me, and that's fine. You've got to do what works best for your classes. You've got to do the practices that best fit your teaching philosophies. Having said that, I'd like you to bear with me and hear me out. So what I'm going to tell you now are 5 reasons that I think we should consider for stopping giving exams in class. The first reason I want us to consider for stopping giving exams in class is that exams in class are unduly stressful. Oftentimes when we're giving exams in class, they're high-stakes exams. There's a lot riding those exams. There's a lot of impact on our students' grades. And you can feel the anxiety in the classroom. The classroom can even get hot as you see your students just kind of sitting there stewing in that anxiety. As the instructor, as a teaching assistant, you might be patrolling that class looking for signs of academic dishonesty. When your students are taking that exam in class, they're working against the clock. There's a time limit for their completion. And adding to that anxiety, your students, especially if a lot of students come to the exam that don't come to every class, might not even be able to sit in that same comfortable seat they always sit in. Now, some people will argue that this situation, the stressful situation of our students taking exams in class, prepares them for everyday life. But I'm not sure that's true. I'm not sure the stressors that people experience in everyday life look like in-class exams. I know that I've never taken an in-class exam outside of school. In real life, I also know that a lot of times when I need information, I have the opportunity to look it up and double check it before I apply it. And while I support challenging our students, I'm not sure in-class exams are challenging our students in the ways that we think they are for preparing them for everyday life. The second reason we might want to consider stopping giving exams in class is that exams in class are not equitable. I just mentioned that exams are stressful. Well, test anxiety is a thing. A lot of people experience test anxiety, but not everyone experiences it to the same degree. Some of your students may struggle with anxiety. Some of your students may be experiencing stereotype threat. Some of your students may be experiencing the imposter phenomenon. And some of your students may not. So that degree of difference, that different experience that students have, may lead them to have more and less fair experiences in taking those exams in class. There also may be advantages for some of your students who like to work more quickly than others. Because you have that time pressure, students who work faster may have an advantage on those exams, making it maybe less fair for students who are not as quick in their work. Now, to be honest, I loved taking exams as a student. I worked really quickly. I was almost always the first person to finish my exam, almost the first person to pass it in. I experienced no test anxiety. I saw exams as an opportunity for me to show off what I know. But as an instructor, I understand that that's not everybody's experience. And one of the things I think we need to do as instructors is to level the playing field as much as we can. We can't allow some of our students to have advantages on the assessment. In-class exams might also be stigmatizing for students who can't take the exam in that class space. Maybe they have an accommodation, maybe they need a distraction-free environment, maybe they need extra time. It might be stigmatizing for them to not be present with the rest of that group. So just simply put, the way that we administer exams in class might not be fair and equitable for everyone. The third reason I want us to consider stop giving exams in class is that giving exams in class is logistically difficult. If you have large classes like some of mine, it's hard to even pass the exams out. And if you have multiple forms of that exam, it's even harder. When you're passing those exams out, you're going to find that some students get their exams earlier and might have a good 5 or 6 minutes extra time to work on those exams versus the students who get those exams later. Again, increasing the inequity of that situation. While that exam is taking, I mentioned this earlier, you might be patrolling looking for evidence of academic dishonesty. That's not wonderful. How are you going to figure out if people are cheating on your exam just by walking around? All you're going to probably do is increase the anxiety of the students who are being watched. When you're given an exam in class, you might have latecomers coming in, disturbing the people who are already working. You might have students who are not done at that time limit. You have to actually take the exams away from them. When students like I was, who finish early, they need to distract everyone around them as they're turning their exam in early. And speaking from the instructor vantage point, proctoring exams is an awful experience. When I'm proctoring an exam, I'm more nervous than my students. I'm much more nervous giving exams than I ever was taking them. While I'm proctoring an exam, I have 50 to 75 minutes where I'm just sitting there silently watching my students. I could be doing almost anything else with my time, and not only would it be more enjoyable, but it would be more productive. I might literally be wasting my time giving in-class exams. The fourth reason that I want us to consider stopping giving in-class exams is that in-class exams are not empathetic. We've done videos before on empathetic course design, and basically what we say in those videos is that empathy, understanding the student's perspective, and caring about our students should inform our teaching practices. We have a specific video where we talk about empathetic assessments and assignments to make those assignments better fit our students' perspective and what they want to learn in our classes. My understanding of in-class exams and my observations of how they're used suggest that our in-class exams are typically not empathetic. They are typically not aware of that student perspective and don't necessarily do the things that our students want to do to demonstrate their learning. Traditional in-class exams, typically not empathetic, typically not inclusive, typically don't provide options for our students to create their own manifestations of their learning. It is students doing all of the same things in the same way without taking into account individual differences among our students. The fifth reason that I want us to consider for stopping giving in-class exams is that in-class exams are not fun. And to qualify that, at least they're not fun for everyone. When my students tell me about the most meaningful things that they got out of my class, they typically don't talk about my exams. When I think about those meaningful things that I learned as a student, the most wonderful things that I did in the classes that I took as a student, I typically don't think about my exams either. When my students do tell me about the most meaningful experiences, the most meaningful demonstrations of their learning in my class, is typically the other things that they did. It's the activities that they participated in. It's the papers they wrote, the projects that they created, the research studies that they created. Those are the things that stuck out to them. And those are the true demonstrations of their learning. And my experiences as a student was the same. Those were the things that I thought of, the things that allowed me to apply my learning in a way that was personally meaningful for me. It occurs to me that traditional in-class exams may actually take the meaning and the wonder out of the things that we are teaching and learning. All right, so far, giving you 5 recommendations for why we should stop giving in-class exams. And you might be saying, wow, there's a lot of stuff for me not to do. What should I be doing? Well, I'm going to give you some recommendations here too. If you're going to continue to use exams, one of the things I recommend is you allow your students to decide when and where they will take that exam. I'm also going to recommend maybe you have different choices during that exam for how they can demonstrate their learning in a way that is personally meaningful for them. If you're going to use exams, maybe consider allowing your students to use resources like their class notes and their textbook. This will help level that playing field. I think this is more similar to what will happen in real life. And you also don't have to worry about academic dishonesty concerns as much because it's not cheating if you let them do it. If you're going to use exams, maybe have your students write and take their own exams. This is a strategy used in some of my classes that I call exams by you. My students work really hard on that. They just demonstrate a lot of learning, and they seem to like it. If we're going to use exams, another thing I recommend is maybe we lower the stakes of that exam. I think having that enormous exam that counts for a really big percentage of the points in class, it just drives up that anxiety level, and I don't think it's necessarily appropriate for us to have one assignment have such an exaggerated impact on our students' grades. And maybe you don't have to use exams at all. Maybe, as I mentioned, for those things that were most meaningful to me as a student and what my students tell me, maybe there are other ways that we can allow our students to creatively and really, really powerfully demonstrate their learning. Maybe we can use projects and papers and podcasts and videos and other ways for our students to show us what they learned. Maybe when we think about assessment, instead of thinking about creating obstacles to our students doing well, maybe we set up a situation where our students are empowered to succeed. As you've probably heard me say before, everything we assign comes back to us. I'm not usually very excited to get exams back, but I am excited to get those other meaningful products of my students' learning. So if we make a little bit of a shift to make those products where our students can demonstrate their learning more meaningful and powerful for them, more personally relevant, more applicable for them in their daily lives, these are going to be more exciting for us when they come back to us to grade. What I think we can do is we can make assessment more meaningful for us and our students when we stop giving exams in class. So I've just shared with you my thoughts about stopping giving exams in class. And I'm fully aware that some of you still disagree with me. And that's completely, totally fine, and I thank you for bearing with me to this point. But what I would like you to do is, even if you're going to consider to give exams, to consider some of the issues that I've raised and try to get around them. You've got to do what works for you. If exams work for you, that's great. But try to make them work as well as they can for you and for your students. In the comments below, I would love to hear your thoughts about giving exams in class. I would love to hear what works. I'd love to hear what doesn't work. And I would love to hear your thoughts about how we can get our students to successfully demonstrate their learning in our classes. Thank you for watching this episode of Engage the Sage. Please like, subscribe, sign up for notifications, share us on social media, and we'll see you next time on Engage the Sage.